Hello, in this video, I'm going to use Giraffe to model up this building and use it as a template so that when you start a new project in Giraffe, this building becomes available as one of the pre-baked templates. There's a lot of reasons to love this building, in my opinion. It's very simple, it's very sedate, but with this rich materiality and carefully considered proportion and rhythm, it looks like a really lovely urban citizen. It looks like it's going to be a building that'll last for a long time and add a lot of value. It's called Ouderdijk, I think, Ouderdijk Housing, and it's almost certainly in Holland. I'll post the links below. Okay, so let's begin. And I'm going to model this not as an apartment layout, so we're not going to consider the internal layout of this. We're just going to consider the facade. And we'll go through the pluses and minuses of that when we are done. So I'm going to assign the usage residential to this building, and I'm just going to make a option to create, just to get rid of this one, which was my practice one. Option 2, buy, and lock. Okay, so it's 4 levels. And you can see this horizontal brickwork goes up, and then there's this kind of vertical infill. So this column here kind of gets a bit skinny. So that distance there and that distance there are different. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to use stroke dash. We're going to get straight into the flow builder. So the stroke dash, let's build the initial bay. So I think maybe it's about 0.6 by 3.2. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to offset this polygon out 0.2, and I'm just going to offset it to the left. And then I'm just going to apply a residential. I'm just going to see what this looks like. Okay, that looks good. You can see that's roughly the right proportion, just a bit more than square. If we come here, you can see that's sort of slightly more than square. We don't want this use to be residential. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, I've actually done this already, so let me do it again. I'm going to build a column usage, column 2. And the critical thing is that the floor to floor height of my column 2 is the same as my residential floor height, which is 3.2, very standard residential floor height. And I'm going to create a color for this thing, and I'll hit save. Okay, I can jump back into this flow builder and use column 2. So I'm going to add a usage column 2. All right, and if I hit save, okay, there we go. That blue outline and that dark brown usage, which looks pretty good. What we should do here is turn this into residential, and what I'm going to do is add that no facades property, no facades, and hit save. And I'm just going to add levels to the main flow. Make sure there's 4 levels. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and that column 2, delete those levels. And when I delete the levels on the output, it inherits the levels from the input, and so now everything goes up and down together. And you can sort of see we've made pretty good progress. We may say that 3.2 is slightly too big. Like we could just sort of start playing with this stroke dash and maybe get him down to 2.9. Now, when I use the up and down arrow, it goes down by a whole digit, whole unit. When I hold the command or the alt key, it goes down by 0.1. If I hold the shift key, it goes down or up and down by 10. So I wanted about 3.0. Okay, all right, so now what we need to do is we need to add some beams across the top, and then we need to add some sort of side column infills. So let's do the side column infills first. So we're going to grab the dashes, and then I'm going to shorten them. I'm going to line shorten them. I'm going to shorten them by, again, 0.4 at the start, 0.4 at the end. And I'm going to grab the 2 end pieces and offset those guys, and I'm going to offset them 0.2 to the left. and I'm going to add column 2 as the usage because it doesn't matter, and I'll hit save. Okay, and you can see that's good. So they've kind of come in, and if we go and look at this gallery, again, the proportion seems roughly right. But you can see I've gone all the way down. I've got this bottom one over here, which doesn't exist over there. So you can see we're talking about that vertically oriented brickwork, this one, and it stops. So that line, that's clear air. So we need to pull it up. So what we're going to do is we are going to delete the levels, and I'm going to actually get into the flow builder. It's these ones over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a base height property, and that base height is going to be 3.2. So it starts 3.2 above the ground, right, which is one level. And then I'm actually going to add another property, which is my levels. And in this instance, I am going to hard code that levels to 3, because the building is 4. And I've started 1 level up, so I only need 3. And if I save changes, happy days. You can see now my columns are widening out after level 1 over here. All right, so now we just need these beams, and then Bob is your uncle. All right, so luckily we've got the beams over here already, which is these middle sections. And so what we can do is we're going to offset them as well, offset these polys by 0.2 to the left, which is our standard dude. And we're going to add this usage. We can add, it actually doesn't matter. We can add, well, let me make beam 2 just for completeness. So let me grab column 2, clone it, and call it beam 2. All right, and it's exactly the same. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a no facades and set that to true. I'm going to save those changes and hop back into the flow builder. And so here I'm going to use beam 2, and I'm just going to save changes. Okay, and you can see there it is, beam 2. Now, a current limitation with Giraffe, which we're working on, is the ability to parameterize the depth of these beams. Currently, they are defaulted to, I think, 200. That's all you can do. So what we're going to do is we are going to add a new property called base height, and we're going to do the same trick that we did with that one column. We're going to set the base height to 3, save those changes, right, which is not quite what we want. What we want is, I'm using the depth of the residential plate, and then I'm going to add the depth of this beam so that they look, so I get this nice thick chunk here. So it's not going to be accurate, but it's going to be close enough. All right, so that beam 2, I'm going to lower that to 2.9. And you can see now I want to bring those columns down as well. So I am going to go and grab them. And there they go. All right, down to 2.9. And that actually looks pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with that. You can see we've got some issues, kind of some battlements at the top, which we need to get rid of. So let's get rid of them. All right. So what we're going to do now is we are going to just chuck a few slabs on the top. And we're going to chuck some slabs on the top. So I'm going to set this guy to, I'm just going to leave him as is. I'm just going to add properties. So I'm going to add a base height property. I'm going to add a height property. And I'm going to add a color property. And I think the base height, it doesn't actually matter. I'll parameterize this when I'm back in the model. And I'm going to offset this boy in, offset this poly, I'm going to offset him in minus 0.2. And then over here, same thing. I'm going to add a height, and I'm going to add a color, and I'm going to add a shiny. And I'm going to set that shiny to true. And then I'm going to hit save. And I should have everything I need. Okay. And I do, it just doesn't look right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my column 2. I'm going to grab the color. So just hit Control C and come over here. And that's the wrong one. So I'm going to go to number 1, and I'm just going to change that color to that. Okay, and now I'm going to change the height to 0.3, and I'm going to change the base height to Sorry, I've really gone and messed that up. The height is 0.3 and the base height is too high. Somewhere like that. Okay. Okay, maybe one bit lower, 12.5. Okay, cool. All right, and I should actually get that base height up to, I think, sorry, 600. I may come back and offset that out. There it is. I'm just going to offset that boy out by 0.2. Save that. Okay, there. So now it's all in line. It's all in line. So we've got a few issues with the outlines, but at least the lines are good. And now we can get this little guy and we can set him up to the right height. Okay, and all this is representing the glass. And the reason he's shiny is because he's shiny. Now this is a challenge, is what color do you set that glass? You could say a dark, or you could say a light. Dark or light. I'm gonna go with maybe a bit of a blue. See, that looks absolutely awful. So that was a bad choice. And that doesn't look, that almost looks good actually, maybe a slightly darker. This, you can tell my graphic ability is reaching the end. Okay, but what I'm going to do now, what I'm going to say is I'm happy with that. I think this actually looks quite good. So we've got the proportions, we've got these columns, the big windows at the bottom, we've got these at the top, you know, this sort of narrowing. We've got a few issues with the way we've been forced to model the beams. Parameters missing from Giraffe, but those will be, you know, next couple of releases will be there. And we've got like a really nice representation of this building. And what's great is that we're actually getting the right GFA, because all of this other stuff, these beams, this like column 2, all of that, and these random 3D masses are irrelevant to our calculations. They're adding 0 area because their efficiencies are set to 0. And so our calculations are going to work. And this is where I encourage you to lean into this sort of half model. And what do I mean by half model? So if I turn on the actual plan, so this I got from Arch Daily, this is the actual plan. You can see the units, there's like the corridor going all the way out, but you can see it's molded onto an existing building. And over here, it's got a, which is the courtyard, it's got the corridor facing the courtyard, and here it's double sided. And so what we've just created, this lump of mass, isn't quite right, in the sense that this facade goes all the way around the building. And so, and let's do this actually properly. Let's scale this to an appropriate dimension. So let's say we're building like 20-meter deep, so about double. Yeah, that's about right. So I'm going to lock those again now. And now I'm just going to trace using this thing. I'm going to trace over the building. And you'll kind of see the limitations of what I've done. And my proposition to you is that they're not actually that bad. Because we're 14 minutes in. And recalling when we actually use this thing, it'll be a template. You'll just be able to access it, but you won't have to go through that whole rigmarole that I've just gone through. Absolute rigmarole. Okay, so there's the building. Oh man, it actually looks fantastic. And let's just build the existing building. So we do that, and then we do this, and then we do this. Check this guy's context. Put them on the default layer. There we go. Just pull them back so there's no stacking issues. And if we were so inclined, we could model out these little kinks that exist in this building over here. But we needn't if we don't feel so inclined. But it's going to help the proportions. Okay, so I may change the floor to floor in that context. I'm assuming here we're matching our floor and floor to their floor and floor to floor. So let's get it to 3.2. Okay, and so now you can see the strength and weakness of this model. The strength is far out, it looks good. It explains exactly what's going on. Weakness is we're modeling facade to the end cap here, where obviously there's going to be a blank wall. If we turn this default down, yeah, you can see there's a blank wall over there. And we're not helping you model this extra large entrance. But very, very quickly, we're in a very, very happy spot, I think. Let's chuck some trees. What am I looking for? Trees, that's what I'm looking for. And I've just got to get this default layer and get that active. I'm going to add a scale property. Just scale that guy down. Get the big boys done. And then we'll get the small boys done. The big boy. I could be getting some nicer trees. One could argue that. But I'm very happy with this. If we turn the render off, and let me just update that residential color, so we get the color of the same color of beam 2, and that'll stop this little eyelash thing happening over here. Boom. All right, now we're getting the true, excluding the textures, but we're getting a true picture here. And this is going to help communicate a scheme. I mean, this is going to be a really nice scheme to talk to about what is going on and why. I think this is a really nice image and explanation. Now, subject to those limitations. And let me just, as a final piece, just in the last 2 minutes, that'll take us to 20 minutes, is let's just get some areas. And we'll just add the GFA net area in square meters. And we're just going to look for net area square meters, just return that. You can see this column's returning 000 and we'll save changes. Okay, so it's 14,000. So that's 1,500. Does that feel right? Oh, sorry, let's just configure this and ignore the plans in option 2. There we go, 9,600. Yeah, so 4 times 1,500 is 6,000. Let me just get this right. Just apply to residential. There we go. So 4 times 1,500 is 4,898. And then 80% of that, which is our efficiency on the residential, is 4,898 or 5,000. Just want to check that context efficiency. Cool. We could also get a facade area. So filter down to that residential. We'll look for that perimeter. We'll look for that floor to floor. We'll look for those levels. A times B times C. perimeter times floor to floor times number of levels, 3,178 square meters of facade. And that's now going to be available as a project in Giraffe as a lovely precedent that you can just use. What I'm going to do is I'll save a view. Order take